Hello, everybody. This is Varfish, and welcome back to a PowerPoint presentation about the Velvet Book, the Persona tabletop role-playing game. Today's subject is the one role engine. So, like any other tabletop, whenever the result of something is in question, whenever there is some sort of challenge associated with the task that you're trying to do, you're going to roll some dice. In this game, we roll d10s. So the dice pool, or just the die you'll be rolling for whatever task you're trying to accomplish, is notated by the number and then just the letter D, because since we're only rolling d10s, you just drop the tens. It saves you space. So if I'm rolling four die, if my dice pool is four die, then I am rolling 4D and I am writing it down as 4D. That's all that means. In our roll, what determines our success? Finding matching numbers, or as the book refers to it, sets. Even a roll of 10, 9, 8, 7, it sounds good on paper because all those numbers are pretty big, but in this game, it's not a very good roll at all. Matter of fact, it is quite bad because we don't have any matching numbers. We need matching numbers to be able to succeed or have any hope of higher success, especially for those harder tasks. Sets like four tens are incredible. It's set by 2 by 1 is pretty shitty, but it'll get you by sometimes. Any die that aren't in a set is just called loose dice. So sometimes, oftentimes, whenever you roll a set, you'll have some left over. Those are just loose, or you can roll all loose if you either are rolling a low dice pool or are just unlucky. They're only really used for a few specific things, which one of which we'll be talking about later. But for now, we're instead going to be talking about more about sets. So when we're writing out our sets or announcing them to our GM, the way that you do this is first the width and then the height. The width is how many die are in the set. So if I roll 3 4s, the width is 3 because I have 3 die in that set. The height is the number on the die, so for those 3 4s, it's going to be a height of 4. You say this and write it out as just width by height, just like a measurement. So you would say, I rolled a 3 by 4. Again, if you want to go back to our tens example, that's just I rolled a 4 by 10. If you're having trouble visualizing like what this looks like, if it's still kind of confusing, you can think of a rectangle. Line up your die all in a row. If it makes a set, 3 is longer than 2, and then the number on your die just represents how far up you're going, how what the height of your rectangle is. So a, a, a rectangle with a height of 8 is going to be better than a rectangle with a height of 4. It's pretty intuitive. I think if you're still not getting it, just talking over a bit more with the GM or just reading over the rules should clear up any confusion you have. Width and height they represent two different things. Width it being your strength and speed, and height being your skill. So there are cases where you want width more, and there are cases where you want height more. The book advises that height be the requirement more often, but your GM will still occasionally call for cases where you need width because if you're trying to like push a car up a hill, how skillfully you're able to, how much aura points you're able to farm while doing so will be less important than the raw force you're putting behind it. So um, width would be more useful there if you're trying to draw out a masterclass artwork. The speed of which you're able to do so is less important than the actual quality of the artwork. So in that case, height is much more important. Sometimes we are stuck in a combat round or there is a ticking clock and we need to do multiple things very fast. If this is happening to you, fear not because you can declare multiple actions at a cost. So if I'm declaring two actions because I am Junpei Iori, and there is a shadow that is across from me, and the only way I can get to him is a bridge, and the bridge just got wrecked. It just got destroyed, and that shadow is about to fight my good buddy Ken, who's a kid, and I don't want to see a kid get hurt. So I'm gonna try to jump the gap and then use my persona, Hermes, to attack the shadow. But those are two things. So I'm going to take a one die penalty because I declared one extra action. In addition to that, because the jump and the attack would use a different die pool, the jump would come from your character sheet and the attack would come from your persona sheet. I'm gonna have to take the lower die pool because I'm only making one roll. This is the one roll engine. So we'll just say that Junpei's jump pool is lower than his attacking pool. We'll say his attacking pool is like 6 or 7D, and his jumping pool is like 4 or 5. So we're gonna be rolling. We'll say it was 5. Our die pool is 5, and then because of the one die penalty, we're only rolling 4 dice. If you're able to get the stats off rip, you'll know that it's not really good for even making one set. It's only like a 50% chance. But what's even worse about that is that we don't need one set, we need two to make sure both actions succeed. Each action needs to correspond to one and only one set. So if I only rolled one set, I gotta choose whether my jump fails or my attack fails. Now, if I'm being a smart cookie, I'm gonna notice that failing the jump is probably a bad idea because I don't want to fall into a pit to my death. So I'll just opt to fail the attack. I'll move over there and I'll stop watching in horror as the shadow comes down upon little buddy Ken. Or if I'm feeling very selfless, I'll just choose to fail the jump. I'll stun the shadow, make sure he's not able to hurt best buddy Ken, and fall to my death. There are scenarios where I want to do that, man. People love self-sacrifice in these games. It's very compelling. So that's kind of a fun thing about multiple actions that you can choose those really dramatic scenarios as they occur. Now, what if I'm the shadow in this situation, and I see Junpei trying to jump across, and then he's gonna slam me with my persona, and I'm like, I don't want that to happen. I'm trying to hit this kiddo. In that case, I'm gonna try using some gobble dice. So, and this isn't limited to only shadows. I'm just following this one example. So the shadow is going to roll using a relevant ability. We'll get into that later. We'll talk about like combat and stuff like that. They're gonna roll, and if they can make a set, that becomes a gobble dice set. Now this gobble dice is capable of breaking Junpei sets. It's one gobble dice takes away one die of the set. Let me rephrase that one more time. One gobble die can knock away one die of your opponent's sets. So, in practice, we'll say by some miracle, Junpei succeeded. He rolled a 2x3 and a 2x4. The shadow for the gobble dice set rolled a 2x8. So he's gonna split those up, and he's gonna have one gobble die eat the 2x4, and the other gobble die eat the other set that I already forgot the number of. But that would break both sets because it changes them from having width of 2 to having width of just 1, which isn't a set. So that means both of Junpei's actions fail, and that he's not gonna be able to save Ken or stop himself from falling to the pit of death and destruction. That's pretty bad. So gobble dice can be very powerful, but there is a caveat. The height of the gobble dice must meet or beat that of the sets you are trying to break. So if our shadow only rolled a 2x1, then there's not a lot he's going to be able to do with that. Unless Junpei also rolled 2x1s, but not in this example. So that's about it for that. Contested actions. This is very simple. Um, so if you're not actively trying to hinder somebody and you're instead just like going head to head, so I think just immediately a race is pretty simple. Good way to give an example for this. If it's more about the skill, again, farming our aura points. So we'll say if there's a drawing competition, um, you both roll. Whoever has the higher height wins. Or, if one person isn't able to make a set, then they fail. And if neither will make a set, they both fail. If they're running the race instead, or trying to outlift each other, the width is going to matter more. So if their width is equal, they tie. If there's an imbalance, whoever has more width wins. Not as complicated as gobbling. The last major thing we're going to be talking about is awesome. So if you have awesome, which comes from pretty specific sources, you're going to have this a lot of the time. It's supposed to be really special, really powerful. It lets you lower the height of your loose dice to make new sets or make the ones you have wider. So if I'm just going to go off the example on screen, if you rolled a 1, a 4, a 7, two 8s, and a 9, that loose 9 you have you can turn it down. You can only turn the dice down, so you can't turn the 1 into a 7 or an 8. The 9 can turn into a 7 or an 8. And depending on what you're trying to do, like whether you have multiple actions lined up or not, or just one, it'll change whether you want to make it that 9 into a 7 or 8. Because with the 7, you'll have two sets. You'll have a 2 by 7 and a 2 by 8. If you change the 9 into an 8, you'll have a 3 by 8. The main example I can come with for this is just like you'll want the wider set for sure if you're attacking and you've only declared one attack. Obviously, if you're trying to do multiple things, then you'll want two sets. That's all it really is. That's pretty much it for the one roll engine. Roll d10s, find sets. If you found sets, good. Tell your DM what the width and height is, and they'll tell you what happens. I think the only really complex part about this is just gobbling because the language is kind of hard. I recommend just reading that section on your own time. And, if you're not interested in dealing with that, you don't have to. You can just deal with it as your enemies use it against you. I added a chart here, or the chart here from the book, that shows the odds of getting a set depending on your dice pool. So you'll notice that after 6 and 7, it stops mattering how many more die you tack on, and you can't ever have a die pool above 10 most of the time. So sometimes in character creation, you'll want to dial back adding the dice and do other stuff, which is more powerful. We'll be talking about character creation next time, tomorrow, I think. And then persona creation, not the day after that, but within the next few days. That's about it from me. I hope you found this informative. If you have any questions, ask them, ask your GM, and read up.